These days, when many of us are sitting at home, it doesn't take a genius to realise the impact that this virus is having on the world. But there's some industries getting hit harder than others, one of these being the movie industry. Since we are all sitting at home, you'll be forgiven for thinking that Hollywood is doing fine because we are all watching movies. But to really understand the impact that this is having on the movie industry, we have to understand the Hollywood machine. It all starts with the script or idea, depending on the project. So the studios or producers might purchase a script that's been written previously. Other projects might be started by the studios who want to create a movie based on a given concept or IP. At this first inception stage, the studios will create a business, LLC or trust, in which its entire purpose is to produce the movie. All money financed for this production will be funneled through this new entity, which is responsible for all the movie costs. And all the people hired for this project are hired through this entity, not the studio itself. But where does this entity get its money? The most common response would be that the money comes from the studios. But in actual fact, the money comes in the form of a loan that the studios will get from financial institutions. And this loan will get paid off when the film is complete and showing in cinemas. And this process will be repeated for every film, with a completely different entity and a completely different loan. So this takes us to when the film is completed and ready to be shown to an audience. This is where a distributor comes in. Their role is to work with the cinema bodies and chains to get the film shown in cinemas. And they tend to be involved with other things too, like marketing. Then we see the film on the big screen, and that's where the cinema chains come in. Their role is to create an experience for people to see the film. And you might think that the cinemas are making lots of money off these films, but really they don't make much at all. Most of the money goes back to the studios. So to understand the bigger picture, let's discuss the cinema's income and outgoings. Cinemas make money a few different ways. Firstly, they make some of the money off the tickets. Again, the studios are taking a large chunk of this money. They make most of their money from things like food and drink, and offering larger experiences for people. This could be luxury experiences, such as gold class, or dine-in eating. And so what are the cinema's outgoings? Firstly, there's rent. All these cinemas have large spaces that we're all accustomed to. We're all used to those grand entrances, open spaces and comfortable seating. And all these things cost a lot of money in rent. They also have large taxes that they have to pay. And as mentioned before, they have to give the studios back their cut in ticket sales. They also have staffing costs. All those people that we see cleaning, serving, and any other job that might be involved. Not to mention all the corporate and admin roles. And they also have to worry about other things, such as supplies. This could be things such as the food and drink that they have to purchase, cleaning supplies, electricity, and any other costs that might be involved with that cinema. The distributor makes their money from the studios, who are paying them to do that job. In many cases, the studios will actually own their own distributor that distributes all their films for them. And again, we'll have other costs, namely staffing and advertising costs. The film production entity itself gets all its money from the budget that was set by the studio, but they have to deal with all the costs involved, such as staffing, talent, construction costs, material costs, rent costs, whether this being studio spaces or anything else that has to be rented for that particular production. Now, the studio itself makes money in a host of different ways, and we can never really mention all of them here, but I'll give you an idea of what some of these are. Firstly, they make their money from the ticketing costs, as mentioned before, but they can also make money in other ways, this being through licensing, merchandise, or partnerships. For example, this could be product placement, or other partnerships, such as McDonald's selling their toys in Happy Meals.
Collect all 10 toys, each free with every Happy Meal. Limited stocks, only at McDonald's.
And finally, the financial institution makes their money through the interest that accumulates on the loan given to the studio. But what happens when a crisis hits, such as the virus that we have today? Well, it all starts at the end, this being the cinemas. and the cinemas are either forced to or people aren't willing to go to the cinemas, that effectively cancels out any income that the cinema was making. But just because a virus like this hits and they're not making any money, doesn't mean that the bills go away. And this starts the snowball effect, which is felt all the way through the industry. With no cinemas open, the distributor can't show any new films that were planned for this period. But again, their costs will continue. And with no films that can be released, this means that the studio can't make their profits. And the virus also slows down other income streams, this being from all the partnerships, merchandising and licensing. But again, their costs continue, and one of their largest costs being the productions themselves. Due to the fact no films can get released, and also for safety reasons, all productions are paused, which means that any film, unless it was very close to being completed in the post-production stage, also has to be stopped. But again, their costs continue. And this takes us back to the beginning. The financial institution, or investors, all these new films that have been paused, will continue to have interest owed on them. And the loans will just get bigger and bigger. The longer that this goes on, the larger the effect it has on the industry. This is disastrous for the whole Hollywood machine that has effectively been put to a standstill. And this means that the studios have to get creative. And that's with one last revenue stream that I haven't mentioned, home viewing. That has traditionally been through things like physical media, DVDs, Blu-rays and VHS.
Shark Tale, out on DVD from Friday.
But nowadays it's through digital rentals and streaming services. So that's why we've seen films that were already in the cinemas when this virus hit, that have gone straight to digital rentals. And this takes us to the very last revenue stream in this cycle, the home viewing experience. So all the studios have to make large decisions about every film in the pipeline, whether they try to get as much money as they can through the digital rentals or streaming services, or whether they wait out until the end. You see, these large films that cost hundreds of $millions to create, we're betting on the fact that the film will be shown in cinemas. Even with more and more of us staying home and watching films on streaming services and digital rentals, their largest moneymaker is still the box office. And the money that's made at the end of this life cycle pales in comparison to the money that they make in partnerships with the cinemas. So that's why anyone involved with this life cycle are making big decisions about what to do with these expensive endeavours. And with an uncertain future ahead, it's scary times for everyone. Personally, I don't think it's the end for cinema. It'll bounce back. It might just take some time. The faster that we can get over this virus so that we're all safe and sound, the faster the cinemas can open again. But when we get through this tunnel, it's going to be a different landscape. The studios are forced to be smaller, nimble, more willing to deal with crises such as this. It's going to be a new world for us all, and it's going to take time to pay off all the debts that this crisis has created. In order to get through this, it's going to involve everyone, whether it's the studio system itself, governments, or us as consumers. But at the other end, we'll be smarter and more willing to deal with these conflicts. And we can all start to experience the magic of cinema again. Movies are powerful. They break down barriers, challenge beliefs, make us question. They unite, they entertain us, and most of all, they do good. And I'm awaiting the day that I and all of us can walk through those cinema doors again.